today is someone who is taking the advocacy baton and running with it. My son, Daniel.
Well, what are we waiting for? Welcome, everyone, once again to the Parent Advocate Podcast. Let's get started.
Let's do this.
Lizette, I'm always asking you to break it down for me, but I think today I'm going to take the lead and I'm going to break it down for you, and then you can tell me what's been going on in your life. First and foremost, I am super excited because this week I will be presenting a presentation on bias, incidents, and reporting to the League of Municipalities in New Jersey in Atlantic City. On Tuesday, I'll be heading down to present to over 300 municipalities that are going to come to listen to this talk. We're co-presenting in a breakout session with the FBI, that's right, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, to talk about the ways in which municipalities can improve the way that bias incidents against LGBTQ plus people are reported, as well as how to reduce the number of incidents of bias, both in municipalities and when people are working with the police force in municipalities. So I'm really excited because it's an opportunity for us to kind of talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to the LGBTQ plus population and police, as well as really dig deep into why biases are occurring and how to eliminate them when folks are dealing with people that they traditionally don't. I am also preparing for a fundraiser for the Dads Too. Woo!
Yay!
Our first executive producer, not our first big money executive producer, Laura Tanner, has agreed to host a fundraiser at her home in Evanston, Illinois. And she, my brother, and I are actively working to put like 50 people in the room. Uchina's coming. She's bringing the Emmy. We're giving people an opportunity to take a picture with the Emmy. We're doing like a step and repeat, a red carpet, the whole nine. There's going to be white glove, hors d'oeuvres being served, a bartender. Like, we're really going all in. My goal is to raise $150,000 that night. And now that the election is over, I think we're going to be able to do it.
That's amazing, Stephen. Congratulations.
Yeah, super excited.
We're going to light some money candles for you.
Holler! Okay. And then finally, I think most importantly, is I just applied for my firearms license in New Jersey. Like, I had applied in 2016 after Trump was elected, and somehow like my application just never made it through. I was going back and forth to the police, and it was just, I got too tired. This year I was like, fuck that. I'm going to do whatever I've got to do because these fools are acting foolish already, and I'm not finna be sitting around here acting like it's all kumbaya when they're not kumbayaing on the other side. So know, trust, and believe that your boy's going to be strapped in no time, and I will be joining the Trujillo family in being a family that adheres to the promise of the Second Amendment.
I mean, I'm a firm believer that Black and Brown people need to protect themselves.
Holler.
And to participate in the Second Amendment.
Holler. Okay, and know that also, our kids and I, we're going to be going to the range, because if there's going to be a firearm in this house, everybody's going to know how to use it. Everybody's going to know how to defend themselves, and everybody is going to be comfortable around firearms in this house. Full stop.
I love that.
All right, your turn.
Stephen, I live in a red fucking state again.
Again.
The promise of purple is gone. So I don't know. Advocacy has amped up again, as it always does. Well, I guess it never ended because I was like still dealing with anti-trans legislation all through Biden. But I'm tired. He hasn't even been sworn in yet. So I'm just like, what do we have to look forward to? Not very much. What else? It's been a busy week, Stephen. We, like all Americans who are distraught over the elections, we still have to work and keep moving. So I still got trans carpool. I still got to drive Daniel to jazz practice. We still got to pay bills. That's been life. And, you know, we keep moving. And I just hope people are finding ways to take care of themselves. I rant.
Well, we could probably rant on further, especially with the Arizona is Red piece, but we've got to get to today's topic. So how about we do that?
Let's do it. With Trump's second administration looming, his cabinet pick signal an outright assault on transgender rights and broader LGBTQ protections. From Marco Rubio's opposition to gender identity data collection to Matt Gaetz's advocacy for criminalizing gender-affirming care for minors, the slate is a troubling lineup of extreme ideologues. Kristen Noem's anti-trans sports bans and Stephen Miller's history of spearheading anti-trans propaganda highlight the alarming trajectory. Perhaps most chilling, the appointments reflect a systemic plan to institutionalize transphobia and roll back decades of progress.
Listen, it's like they've weaponized every form of bigotry imaginable and aimed it directly at our families. These appointments aren't just dangerous, they're deliberate. They send a clear message that erasing our kids and stripping them of their rights is a cornerstone of this administration's agenda. But we ain't gonna let them. We faced down hate before and we'll do it again. This moment calls for unwavering solidarity and action, not just within the trans community, but from every person who believes in equality, dignity, and justice.
And people who just believe in washing their hands, right? Like Trump's pick for heading the military apparently told people he doesn't believe in washing his hands because he can't see germs.
Lisette, can we even talk about being head of Department of Health and Human Services? Like, how are these picks possible? But Lisette, all is not lost. Following Donald Trump's reelection, Democratic leaders in blue states are preparing to resist his administration's conservative agenda, emphasizing civil rights, reproductive care, environmental protections, and immigrant rights. California's Governor Gavin Newsom plans a legislative session to Trump-proof his state, while Washington's Bob Ferguson is reviewing Project 2025's blueprint to anticipate potential legal battles. Illinois and Colorado governors have launched the Governors Safeguarding Democracy Coalition to defend state institutions against authoritarian threats, and Democrats in battleground states like yours, Arizona and New Jersey, are balancing resistance with areas of potential cooperation, acknowledging the complexities of governing under a Trump administration.
Activists and progressives call on Democratic officials to adopt bold, collaborative approaches to protect vulnerable communities, safeguard democracy, and counter MAGA extremists effectively. Stephen, this story is so heartbreaking and a reminder of what happens when schools fail to protect their most vulnerable students. The U.S. Department of Education found Nex Benedict School District accountable for fostering a hostile climate in response to HRC's complaint. The findings by the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights show a pattern of negligence that allowed harassment and abuse to go unchecked, creating a hostile environment for LGBTQIA students. Nex Benedict's tragic death underscores the urgent need for systemic change and accountability, not just in Owasso, but nationwide. While the resolution agreement with the school district to target future acts of harassment and bullying is a step forward, it's clear that we need to keep pushing for schools to prioritize the safety and dignity of every child, especially trans and non-binary students who are often targeted.
Nex's story is really a devastating call to action, one we can't afford to ignore. This isn't just about holding one school district accountable. It's about addressing a culture of neglect that permeates too many schools across this country. When administrators and educators turn a blind eye to harassment, it sends a really dangerous message that some students' safety and lives are less valuable. We owe it to Nex, their family, and every student who has suffered to demand not just accountability, but meaningful, lasting change that ensures our schools are safe and affirming spaces for all kids. But enough with these topics. We've got to get to our very special guest. Daniel Trujillo is a 17-year-old Chicano high school student from Tucson, Arizona. A trans activist most famously known for being one of the creators and four organizers of Trans Prom, Daniel has been advocating for trans rights for most of his life. Daniel's activism has taken many forms, including a recent acting stint in a short film which has been tapped as an official selection at this year's Sundance Film Festival. Daniel has also been featured in the ACLU's Freedom to Be campaign, highlighting transgender people and their families from across the country finding joy and community. Daniel is committed to uplifting the voices of trans youth and speaks regularly at the state capitol and on panels around issues impacting trans people. When he's not trying to save the world, you can find him drawing, building Legos, playing his guitar, or skateboarding. Everyone, please welcome Daniel Trujillo to our show.
Yay, welcome to the show, Daniel. I just want you to know that Stephen wrote your bio while I was texting him your bio, and he actually wasn't far off. It was almost...
Yeah, this is like what we have on there.
Yeah, you did a good job.
Because I know you, kid.
Yeah. Uncle Stephen brought it. All right, Daniel. Our first question for you today is really easy. Tell us about yourself and share 3 things that folks might not know.
Well, my name is Daniel Trujillo. I use he, him pronouns. Like Stephen said, I just turned 17 this last August. Or not last August, this August. That was really cool. 3 things people might not know about me. I play jazz guitar. I love Radiohead. So I also play a lot of Radiohead. What's the 3rd thing I do?
You've watched On My Block 3 times.
I have watched On My Block 3 times.
That's On My block?
On my block, it's like a dumb, no, maybe not. It's like supposed to be like a fun, like a comedy drama, I think, of like four high schoolers, and they go like on this like adventure to find a bunch of money hidden in their neighborhood. It's just the funny show.
Well, that is interesting. Thank you for sharing, because people don't know anything about you. But your mom shared with me earlier when we were working on your bio the fact that when you were 9 years old, that was the first time you spoke to state lawmakers about the importance of supporting trans kids. What was that like? And why has advocacy become such an important part of your life?
What I think is really sweet about my first time testifying at my state capitol is that I actually wrote like a little letter, and it was read on the floor.
The House floor.
Yeah, I wrote a little letter that was read on the House floor. I think it's really cute. It was on like a little hotel notebook, and it was in scribbly handwriting. And I remember I was like, I don't want to read it out loud. I want someone else to read it, because I was like a shy little 9-year-old. I was like still just like a little kid.
And Senator Gobaldon read it on the floor.
Yes.
And entered it into the minutes.
So I have a question for you. That was your first experience, but you've gone to the Capitol multiple times since then. What have you learned from going back and forth over all of these years?
I think what's the hardest thing I learned about going to the Capitol all these, like, for like basically ever, it feels like, since I've been like since I was like 14, is that sometimes your representatives don't represent you and your community will. There's been so many times when these lawmakers who say they want to protect me and do what's right for me and my community are just blatantly disrespectful. They've tried to dead name me. They've tried to misgender me. They demean oftentimes what I have to say because of how young I am. And I know they hate to see me come in. I see their faces because I'm a regular there. They hate to see me come in, and I come every year. What is really amazing though is all the people I see there and all the people that we drive up with to go do these things. Like, yes, having to fight for your right to exist is so taxing and so scary all the time, but all the people that do it alongside us, all the community we've built around it has been really beautiful. I mean, like, Stephen, you've known me since I was like 11.
I've known you for a hot minute, that's right. And I've actually watched you grow into your advocacy, which is so weird because I'm always looking at Hobbs thinking, you suck. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. He's in the other room too, so hopefully he won't listen to this episode and be like, Dad, really? No, I'm just kidding. But it's really interesting to watch you alongside your mom and your dad just do the damn thing, because it is so important to hear from the youth, trans youth in particular, who are invariably impacted the most. Like your mom and I, we're impact adjacent. You're impacted directly. And so it's really important that these lawmakers, these legislators, even if they don't listen sometimes, that they hear it directly from y'all, because that's where I think the greatest impact comes from.
It's been interesting to watch adults be hostile to kids. Yeah. In these hearings, and to see the kids walk away with their heads held high. The Arizona State Legislature can be a piece of work, and so it's not for the faint at heart. And I always have all these mixed feelings around us having to be there.
So I have another question, Daniel, because this is something that is what I think many people take for granted. The fact that you're not even adult technically, you have one more year until you're 18, and yet you've had to do something that 99% of adults have never done, which is testify at a state capitol multiple times. But to your mother's point, what do you think about these legislators, these adults who watch you and your peers come to the Capitol, testify, and then act like they've never heard any of the really important things that you've said?
Can I prod your memory?
Yes.
So it wasn't last year, but the year before, Daniel spoke in front of a committee that was headed by Senator Bennett, who was our no vote on the bathroom ban initiative for the November ballot. That was the one moment I remember Daniel being so angry. It wasn't even like Wendy Rogers misgendering him and calling him by a different name. It was literally Senator Bennett being dismissive. So I'll let you take it from here.
This is what I was gonna say. I just didn't know how to
get into it.
I just didn't want to be too mean, you know?
No, do it.
Be mean. Be mean.
Yeah, my whole thing is that actually do your job. For I have two things. One, actually do your job, because what I'm hearing is that you're gonna sit at your desk. I watch them. They tap their little pens. They get so bored listening to people. How about listen to your constituents and actually do your job, because they're telling you what they need and you're not listening, which is crazy. That's crazy. You know, I was like, you can do that if you're gonna be a cashier or something. You know, do something with your job. That's all I'm thinking. My second thing is, what would your kids think if your kid came to you with something important that was happening at school or with a teacher or with a friend? What would you do? And how would your kids feel if in the same situation, just I guess a different setting, what you would do? Here's what the story my mom was sharing is that I had worked real hard on this testimony. I was ready to present it. And in the testimony, I mentioned that I am in my school's jazz combo class, just to kind of list off the things I do to humanize me, kind of, to these people who like to pretend I'm just like a number and a statistic. And the only thing he had to say about my whole spiel was, with this cheeky little grin on his face, he was like, Daniel, what instrument do you play? As if that was the focal point and the purpose of me being there. And that made me so mad.
Yeah, it was around like why classroom support is needed, right? And Daniel listed off how he goes to a school that supports him, and because he's supported by his, the school administration, he's supported by his parents, he's able to focus and listed off all these merits. I get good grades, I'm in my school's jazz, all the things, I'm in these clubs. And literally he looked at him and said, what instrument do you play? Wow, that must be really hard, thank you. And that was it. It was the most dismissive moment, and Daniel was so angry.
I was outraged.
And that's what going to the state capitol is like. It's being dismissed over and over again.
So your mom actually has a question about how you were able to channel all this aggression into something positive.
So Daniel, tell us about Trans Prom, and how did you and your friends decide to make this really special protest happen on the National Mall?
I think what was really important is that all of us were so equally frustrated. And I mean, not only the kids, but also the adults in our little Zoom calls helping us, and helping organize everything. And we share this a lot, but the one thing I kept thinking was how frustrated I was that my life gets turned, not only my life, but the lives of many trans people gets turned into just numbers and nameless stories. And they're often true, but they're also really tragic. And a lot of these horror stories. And all I kept thinking was that we needed this to be something joyous and something not only for cis people to see, but for trans people to feel. And I think everyone being so fed up of being told what their life is going to look like kind of drove that into being like, well, what should our life look like? And what should our life feel like day to day? And I think that's where a lot of that came from.
But how did you get started? Like, how did you plan it?
Oh, me and Libby were texting and we were like, hey, we have a great idea. And we're both like, oh, we're so frustrated with all this hate, all this stuff going on, all this anti-trans legislation, just all the stuff that goes on, whether it's like school, your friends, whatever, right? And we were like, we should do like a rally or something. So then we came to our parents and we were like, Mom, we have this idea. We want to do a rally. And our parents were like, hold on, we know the people. Let's get this ball rolling. Then my mom had contacted Chase Strangio and he was like, hold on, guys. I know the people. We got this. It just kind of snowballed, I feel like.
And then we brought in Hobbs and Grayson, and it just went from there.
Beautiful.
You often mention that being in community shaped you, kind of helped to make you who you are. Can you kind of tell our listeners why community is so important to you?
I think I'm going to do a little backstory for this one. I think when I had first come out, my mom told me this later. I didn't know this in the moment when it was all happening. But when I had first come out, my parents were really nervous because we had a family friend that had told us like, oh my God, you guys are the only family in Arizona with like a trans kid. So my parents were like super scared because first off, what does this mean for our family? Second off, we were a multi-status family at the time and we were still just like waiting for my dad to get a citizenship. And so there was just all these things that could go wrong, especially because you, again, hear these horror stories of children being taken away from their supportive parents, As I had slowly started my social transition, like at school and amongst family, my parents found a local parent support group for parents of trans youth. And the first time we had gone, it was like I think like 5 families, and there was like 4 other kids, and they were all like a little older than me. They were like 11 to 13, and we had a blast. I was like, wow, this is so cool. I'm friends with like teenagers basically, right? And they thought I was the funniest. I was the funniest kid because I was like 8. I was probably saying some like stupid stuff. I don't know. And at the end of it, me and my mom and my dad got in the car. My mom started driving and was like, what was it like to be around so many other trans people? My mind was blown. I was like, oh my God, they were trans? This is so crazy. And I think in like the moment, it just felt really cool to be in a space with so many people like me, you know, especially when you're so young and you've never had that already, you know. For a lot of like cis het kids just growing up in the world, their family is their community. They're their representation, you know, or they see themselves in each other, I feel like. And for a lot of queer children, for a lot of queer kids growing up, they're not represented by their family and they don't see themselves in their everyday people, you know? And so I think that was a really amazing experience. And ever since that first day, we've gone every month, you know? And now my mom facilitates that group and we go every month. And now I'm the teenagers hanging out with the little kids. And the little kids have so much fun. The way we like hype each other up, because some of the kids will have like I'm trying not to say bad words, some stupid little kid saying some stupid little stuff, you know? And I'm like, no, but you don't even need to listen to them. They don't matter. That kid, who even cares, you know? And the sense of community amongst the kids there is just so beautiful because we all see each other. There's not a need to perform gender. There's not a need to be something more than you already are. You just have to be there and you just have to be yourself and be fun and have fun. And that's really amazing. And also from this parent support space, we have found so many other like trans adults. Like my mom's best friend, Rustumi. We've been like family friends. He's basically my friend, I like to say, even though like I guess in all technicalities, no. But if he ever says no, I'm gonna be like, what do you mean? me and Russ are like best friends, you know?
Nope. I'm gonna have to stop you right there.
Oh wait,
I'm gonna have to stop. Nope.
Nope.
You can't be calling everybody your best friend when your actual best friend is on the other end of this Zoom.
Whoa. I can have a plethora of best friends, but you're number one. You're number one. Always and forever.
Okay. I'll take it.
But I think that having like, I know all these trans adults, like I can't ever say her last name, but Jenny said
Gutierrez.
Yeah, Jenny said I'm not even gonna fly. Sorry.
I'm taking your Latinx card right now.
Hey.
I'm gonna tell you right now. Nope. I'm taking it from you. It's taken.
Even Stephen can say Gutierrez.
Gutierrez.
You added like an extra syllable.
I did, but that's because I'm fancy.
Oh, it's for some pizzazz. My bad.
It's a little bit of saison. Stop playing with me.
But there's just all these like community leaders, like Reverend Lewis, who is the Reverend at our like, I guess not local, but the church that we have.
Yeah, it's our local church.
Our local. Yeah, he's a Reverend at our local church, and he's a Black trans man who's like lived it, you know. And there's just all these role models around me that have defied all the statistics I read online. You know, they have families, they have professional careers, they have done all this work, they live past 32, you know, they defied all the sort of odds against them and can now be like a window into the future for all the youth that are here in Tucson, you know.
So Daniel, considering that like you've just spoken to us about the importance of community and what it's meant for you to be surrounded by elders and peers, like what are you feeling post-election? And what are the fears that you're feeling? What do you think we can do as allies, as friends, as community to help support youth like yourself?
Post-election, I know not only me, but also a lot of other trans youth are feeling honestly really nervous, really scared about what this is all gonna look like for the next 4 years. I know there's a lot of confusion on what people's futures are gonna look like. There's a lot of worry about what not only the next 4 years, but the next 3 years, 2 years, the next year, you know. We feel fearful for our doctors, our teachers, our friends who have supported us, our parents who have supported us. There's just a lot of what ifs I feel like going on. There's a lot of what ifs, not even only for trans people and the people that have supported me in my life, but also for immigrants, for climate, for gun control. You know, there's all these horrible things that could happen. And so I feel like everyone's been saying this. We feel really scared.
Mhm.
And also, stop. I need to say one thing because this has been making me mad, and we don't need to put this in here like at all. But all of these Trump supporters are like, oh my God, people that voted for Kamala crying all the time, like, well, guys, cope. It's just an election. I'm like, you guys tried to overthrow the government last time.
Hello.
Like, how about you guys cope?
Hello. So let me ask you something. You've just expressed to me how you're feeling, and a lot of it is couched in anxiety and concern about what the next, let's just say, the next year is going to look like, without regard to what his whole, presidency is going to look like. How are you managing those feelings, and what would you say to other trans and non-binary youth who are experiencing the same kind of feelings about how they can manage those feelings?
I think for both questions is that community is like the one thing we got now, which sounds like real scary and real sad, but we've done it before. We can do it again and just stay connected, be there for each other. My main thing for other trans youth, I've seen a lot of this happening online, but this is not the time to try and change who you are or like hide who you are and to basically lie about who you are. This is not that moment. This is the moment to be loud and to be more proud than you've ever been for your queerness, for your culture, for your identity. This is like the moment for that because their whole plan is to make everyone hide it away. And I don't know about y'all, but I refuse to let that happen. For the other one about what allies can do, I think it's the same thing. Be very loud and be very open about your support for trans youth. Be an active community member. If you're a parent of a trans youth, ensure that you're deeply rooted within your local community. Be deeply rooted in what the political landscape looks like. Be like a hawk. Stay focused on like protecting not only your family but also the people around you. Continue to listen to what trans and queer people need. Continue to do all the things allies are already doing, but just ensure that you're doing that times 10 because that's what we need right now. But the way I'm managing is kind of like taking time for myself. I've done my little therapy sessions. I'm a big believer that everyone needs a therapist.
The other day I came home and Daniel was in like sweatshirt, a t-shirt. He was eating. What were you eating?
I don't know.
I don't know. Like a bowl of cereal, and he was playing Call of Duty. And I just thought this is such a relaxation boy moment. You know what I mean?
Lizette, I came home the other day and Hobbs had come home from college and he's laid out on the couch with the cats on top of him with a bowl of like spaghetti that he had just finished. And he was just like, hey, can you put this in the sink for me? I got cats on top of me, just lounging. And I was just like, how are you doing? And he's like, I'm good. I'm home. I'm good. And that's what we want. We want our kids to just have a sense of normalcy, because even though a lot of people are out here screaming that the sky is falling and, fuck around, the sky is falling. Trump is putting some batshit crazy motherfuckers into his cabinet. And I know it's going to be a clown car administration again of a bunch of fools infighting and trying to get his attention and just fucking up the country in the process. But at the same time, that level of idiocy, stupidity, and lack of discipline and control is going to mean that a lot of the things that they want to try to accomplish from a policy perspective won't actually get done because they're just too batshit crazy to get it done. And so everyone be calm, play Call of Duty, eat your cereal, nothing to see here, folks.
It was just such a perfect moment of his own personal affirmation, right? In like the word Daniel didn't use, which is that this administration wants to erase trans people through use of fear and policies that would force people to feel like they could not affirm themselves and be visible in public spaces, right? And so walking into the house that evening and just seeing him like buoyed out, I was like, this is such like a self-affirmation space that you've created in front of the TV, and like in the living room. And I think our kids are going to need a lot of that, those little simple pleasures in the midst of all of this. Daniel, I want to ask you, we're going to the Supreme Court in December. Stephen's going to be there. All of our friends and co-conspirators and people we've worked with in the past, they're all going to be there for the big ACLU rally. You and Hobbs were both part of the Freedom to Be ACLU campaign, which is around trans joy and what gender affirming care means to you all. What does this case mean to you? Like, why is it important? What do you want our listeners to know around the importance of access to care and showing up in support and in the fight for trans youth like yourself?
I think not only like trans people, but also allies should be watching this case really closely, because this is like the first of its time. and it's going to make or break everything. I mean, Chase Strangio is going to be the first trans person to present an argument to the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
And this ruling can and will change millions of lives.
Mm-hmm.
And not only trans lives, but also what gender affirming care looks like for every person.
Yes.
And it's going to change homes. It's going to change families. It's going to change a lot of dynamics based on what happens. And if you care about the people in your life, no matter who they are, you're going to want to care about this case because it's going to, in one way or another, affect yourself and the people you care about most. That's what I think. I think this case is crazy. How many trans people have spoken to the Supreme Court like ever? That's a side note.
What's very interesting that I don't think that most people realize or recognize about the Scribetti case that's about to be argued in front of the Supreme Court is that the decision will impact cisgender kids more than it will affect transgender kids. Let me say that again for the people hard of hearing. The outcome of this case will impact cisgender kids more than it will impact transgender kids. And why is that? It's because Tennessee is attempting to ban procedures and medications and the application of medications by medical professionals to their patients, regardless of their gender identity. That's what's going to happen. If they ban the type of care that the plaintiffs are arguing is life-saving and affirming, that their medical practitioners, the doctors who are also plaintiffs in this lawsuit, have determined is medically necessary to provide care for their patients, and the court disagrees, the court will prevent cisgender kids from having access to care that transgender children are also receiving and non-binary children are also receiving. And I don't think people appreciate or recognize that that's what's about to happen.
I think that regarding gender affirming medical care, it is life-saving, and I am proof that it is life-saving. It has impacted my life so positively. I feel so comfortable in myself. I feel so proud and secure in myself in every space that I go to. It's made me happier. And I think a lot of other trans people, whether or not they have received gender affirming medical care or they are, would agree that without it, life would be like a lot more straining.
The outcome of this case is going to impact cisgender children in much the same ways as trans and non-binary children are going to be impacted, because the flight of doctors out of states, the closing of medical care facilities in states that have banned gender affirming care continues to impact cisgender people in ways that no one anticipates and recognizes is happening. And so when you have doctors fleeing the state because they can't get liability insurance, when you have doctors fleeing the state because their medical centers are being closed, when you have doctors fleeing the states because they don't want to be sued for providing the care that they've been providing to these patients for years without being accosted, that's going to have a detrimental effect on all forms of pediatric care. And people don't recognize that this is happening.
I just want to echo too, like, I remember finding a video that Dr. Christina Olsen did years ago that talked about statistics found online. And she reframed it in this really beautiful way that was like, what if we followed the lives of trans youth who had access to care, who were in supportive homes? We know that these negative outcomes are because people are rejected, kicked out of their homes. They don't have access to care. They might be houseless. So you see these horrible rates of statistic. And for those of us as parents who provided care, who've done all the things to mitigate and to ensure that our child had a different life outcome, this case feels terrifying, right? Because it's stripping our power to make decisions, medically necessary decisions for our children, and allowing the states to ban it for us. And so, I've been lighting plenty of candles for Chase and for the ACLU and many prayers around this very case. And I just hope our kids continue to be affirmed and supportive and to have access to the care that has been life-saving and necessary for them.
Let me just say this. The Supreme Court is about to get a history lesson, a law class, and a thorough tongue lashing from Chase. He's going to do all those things respectively, but Chase is no slouch. When it comes to jurists, he is one of the top legal minds in this country. And because he is trans, he can speak from a perspective that no one else can. And so I am hard pressed to see the Supreme Court justices not giving him just desserts. And I know Ketanji Brown, she's about to be all up on that. Sotomayor, she's about to be all up on it. Like, all of our female justices on the left are going to be rocking with him.
I don't want to count out Gorsuch, right? Because Gorsuch ruled on the side of Amy Stevens during Bostock. And I learned that a decade prior to that, he had also ruled in favor of the trans person who was bringing their case forward too. So I don't know, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed is right. But enough about the serious stuff. Daniel, I want to get to the real serious stuff. What are your top 3 favorite bands?
Oh, okay. I was like, whoa, this is about to get crazy. I gotta like lock in. Ugh. Okay. My top 3 favorite bands. My first all-time favorite band of all flipping time is Radiohead, if you couldn't guess.
I was gonna say it, but I didn't want to jump in there.
Yeah, what if you were wrong? Who knows?
That's why I said I had to keep my mouth shut.
My second favorite band, I think is Rage Against the Machine.
I was gonna say it too, but I didn't want to jump in there again.
You know me too well, Stephen.
And then number 3.
Number 3, lately, maybe this isn't my 3rd favorite band of all time. Maybe this is my 3rd favorite band of right now. But I like this. He's a German jazz guitar player, and his name is Joshua Stefan, and he has a little trio that they call the Transatlantic Trio.
I wasn't going to guess that.
And it's 3 guitarists. But one guy plays the guitar like it's a piano, which is kind of neat.
So I want to ask you, how do you feel about Smashing Pumpkins?
Smashing Pumpkins? Don't get me on recording saying this.
You can say it. We'll just it out.
Okay, I like them. I saw them in concert.
I don't understand how we got to do that. Smashing Pumpkins is amazing, but
I don't like them.
No, but they're evil, I guess.
Oh, okay. So that's the part. That's the part. So we can say we like Smashing Pumpkins, but they're evil.
but they're evil. Yeah, they're evil on the low. I saw them with Green Day.
Green Day is good.
I like Green Day.
Okay. All right.
All right. So you know that our audience is parents, and who better to get this kind of advice from than from you?
Of course.
What are 3 pieces of advice you would give to parents supporting trans youth?
It's a lot of advice together. I think what I say every time for this, that I feel like a lot of people don't say for some reason, is to, or like what I was saying earlier too, I guess also, is to ensure you and your family have community, because you are not going to have all the answers and they are not going to have all the answers, and you're going to need people by your side that are going to help you find those answers, because sometimes nobody has the answer, and you just need people around you. Your kids need to feel seen and represented by somebody in their life, you know? And I'm sure parents must feel stuck a lot of the time too, so maybe you guys need someone to represent you in your life. I don't know. Number 2 is that parents have to fight for their kids, and this doesn't mean that they have to do. It would be really awesome if they did like testify at their state capitol against anti-trans legislation. But really, what I'm saying is that amongst friends, amongst family, in your school, in your religious spaces, fight for your kids so that they can be safe in all of their spaces. The first thing my parents did was communicate to our family and being like, hey, we are going to support our kid. If you're not going to hop on that train with us, well, we're leaving the station. Goodbye. You know? And school is a challenging, like a challenging space for a lot of people, right? And being ready to like really tell off that one little nosy principal and be like, why aren't you letting my kid do A, B, and C that they need to do? Like, where is this lapse in protecting my child when I'm not there? Oh, I almost did 4. Number 3. What is number 3? Guys, this is really hard. Number 3, drumroll please, is to believe your child when they come to you and they tell you that this is who they are. That this is who they are. When they come to you with something so vulnerable, you know? Believe them, affirm them, and love them. Believe them, affirm them, and love them.
Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today. You have to understand, we've been trying to have you on for a hot minute now. We had you and Hobbs on a long time ago, and the episode was such trash that we put it in the garbage. But this episode is amazing, and we're actually going to use it. So thank you for joining us.
Daniel said that he was quiet in the last one because he says that Hobbs always knows what to say and it's intimidating. And so I think they were both quiet, and Daniel was like, what's happening?
We need to separate y'all to get the best out of you, is what you're telling me.
Thank you, Daniel, for joining us.
Thank you.
Get out of here. You're done. Thank you. Now it's time for our recurring segment, Allies and Assholes, where we highlight individuals or groups that are supporting the LGBTQI community on the one hand and call out straight up assholes who are trying to move us all backwards on the other. Lisette, who are we talking about today?
Stephen, our ally of the week is one of our favorite people. You've been to her show. We love her. Kelly Clarkson. Kelly Clarkson used her platform to celebrate Trans Awareness Week by amplifying the heartwarming coming out story of Jenna T, a trans woman from Utah. Clarkson not only honored Jenna's journey, but also highlighted the unconditional love and support of Jenna's grandmother, sharing a viral moment that deeply moved her and her audience. By championing affirming stories like Jenna's, Clarkson continues to create visibility and foster understanding for trans community.
Kelly Clarkson's celebration of Jenna T's story is a powerful reminder of the impact allyship can have when it comes from a place of authenticity and love. Highlighting such positive narratives not only affirms trans lives, but also inspires others to support their loved ones unconditionally. Clarkson's platform makes her voice a beacon of hope and change for our community.
And this is why Kelly Clarkson is our Ally of the Week.
Okay, congratulations to Kelly. Now on to our asshole of the week. This week's asshole is New York Representative Tom Suozzi. Suozzi's comments blaming trans people for the Democrats' electoral loss, like last week's asshole Seth Moulton, are as baseless as they are harmful. Despite supporting trans-inclusive legislation in the past, Suozzi has now weaponized transphobia to score political points, perpetuating dangerous stereotypes around trans athletes. His statement not only ignores data showing that trans participation in sports is not detrimental to cis athletes, but also scapegoats an already marginalized community for broader political failures. Suozzi's opportunism further divides his party and undermines the fight for equality, all while distracting from the actual reasons voters turned away from Democrats, such as economic concern.
Suozzi's comments are both cowardly and hypocritical. Instead of standing firm on the principles of equality and inclusion, he's choosing to echo right-wing talking points and harm trans youth and weaken our democracy.
And this is why Tom Suozzi is our asshole of the week. Well, that's our show for today, folks. I want to thank today's guest, Daniel Trujillo, for joining us today. And of course, I gotta give it to my co-host, Lizette Trujillo, for being an all-around wild person that she is.
Thanks, Stephen. You know I couldn't do this without you, and could not do this without all of you, our listeners. So thanks for tuning in to the Parent Advocate Podcast.
And folks, please be sure to subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and do whatever you've got to do to stay up to date with everything